Hello everyone, welcome back to another election prediction video. This time we have Francis Suarez, the mayor of Miami in Florida, up against President Joe Biden. Now Francis Suarez, he's a bit of an interesting candidate. I would definitely classify him as a moderate Republican. In the 2018 Florida governor race, he didn't even vote for Ron DeSantis. He actually voted for the Democrat, and in 2020 he wrote in Marco Rubio. So again, on climate issues, he's extremely moderate. He actually acknowledges climate change is real. Plus, on other issues, he's not as super right wing, which I definitely think could help him in a lot of these swing states, especially with independent voters. But the real key is the Rust Belt here. And so far, he really hasn't delved into economic policy hard enough. But again, I think his positioning among independents in the Rust Belt could probably help him do well there. So let's start off with the first few states. So his home state of Florida, of course, he's going to win it. I think he will be pretty popular in the state of Florida, probably win it by about 8 points or so, I would say, against Joe Biden, just because, again, Democrats just keep losing more and more momentum in Florida. And in Texas, he's the right type of Republican to probably keep this in the likely column as well. I don't think I'm offending much Republicans here. I think he'll do well with most of them in the state of Texas. In Alaska, he's typically the more moderate Republican. So we saw Murkowski. She did pretty well here in Alaska in the Senate race here. And typically, just moderate Republicans do quite well in Alaska. So I think he'll be able to hold Alaska down as a safe state. But I want to go into his political views really quickly. So overall, on the issues, he only supports a 15-week abortion ban. That's not as extreme in the American public's eyes. That wouldn't really hurt him as much, because some polling actually shows that a 15-week ban isn't as controversial as a 6-week ban, which no one supports. 15-week, there might be a small plurality there of support. But again, he's against repealing the 14th Amendment. That'll probably actually help him with minority voters quite a bit. So I think we might see the effect where he actually does quite well, like a lot better in the urban areas, but he might lose some voters in the rural areas for not being as conservative on the issues. But again, he's going to do well better with minority voters and definitely shift those urban areas quite a bit. So again, that'll probably help him out in Florida, Texas. There's huge urban centers there. Into Iowa and Ohio, I still think that Iowa would probably be likely Republican, and Ohio probably still, it would be a little bit smaller of a margin than Trump's win, just due to a probably drop off in voting the Rust Belt areas here in the rural areas, I mean. But again, he would do a bit better in the urban areas, so yeah. In Colorado, it's still safe Democratic. I don't see any moderate Republican even getting it below 10 at this point. Virginia probably would be a 6-point win. New Mexico, probably 6 points as well. I could see Suarez doing better with Latino voters. I could see that definitely helping him in states like North Carolina and Georgia. They like a good moderate conservative in these areas. Brian Kemp especially, he was a lot more moderate type of Republican. So again, I could see him quite doing well with minority voters in Georgia, a lot better than most Republicans here. Same with North Carolina, winning both of them by lean Republican margins, probably like 3 points in North Carolina, 1.5% in Georgia. Into Arizona and Nevada. Again, this is where the moderate types of Republicans usually excel in both these states, especially in Nevada and Arizona. But Arizona would probably be a tiny bit more Republican than Nevada. Again, he kind of supports somewhat of a national abortion ban. So again, that would probably cause his margin in Nevada to go down a bit just because of that. But I still think he would do well with independent voters there. Nebraska's second would probably go down to lean Democratic. Minnesota, probably about likely or so. Maine at large, yeah, I could see him being a bit more moderate. That would appeal better in Maine, so I think he would get it down to likely instead of safe. Maine's second congressional district. So with Maine's second, again, he wouldn't do as well in the rural areas, so I'm going to put this as a probably a lean Republican margin. It wouldn't be likely, because again, there would be a drop-off there, because he isn't as conservative as most other candidates. New Hampshire, I could definitely see that margin dipping down a bit here. So, because he's a lot more of a moderate, I could see him doing better with independent voters, but not enough to win the state. It's still a lot more socially liberal than it is like socially moderate at this point in New Hampshire. But we're down to the Rust Belt states here. Honestly, he's so vague on like economic policy. I can't really figure out anything about it except that he just likes lower taxes. But he's also into Bitcoin. He tried doing Miami coin, but it didn't really work out well, lost over 90% of its value. But he's like the cryptocurrency candidate. But he's so vague on economic policies that I really can't figure out what he supports. I'm pretty sure, because he's a moderate Republican, I think he'd probably take the moderate stance on Social Security. He wouldn't try to go after it. I think he would just leave it alone for now, because again, he seems like he supports the policies that are more popular with independent voters. So I think he'd be a bit more tactical on issues like that. I can't find anything about him on unions, though. That's the thing that's really hard researching about this type of candidate, but I'm pretty sure he wouldn't try to go after them. So, yeah, for now, I don't think he would do too badly in the Rust Belt, honestly. But I still think Biden would win Michigan. Biden would probably still carry Pennsylvania because, again, he's just so vague right now. But in the state of Wisconsin, which typically it just kind of depends on, like, a popular vote. And I think Francis Suarez would be able to keep Biden down to only like a 2 point or 1 point win, or even have a chance of actually beating the popular vote. I'd say it would be only like a 1.5% victory for Biden in the popular vote here. But again, with Wisconsin, I mean, they did reelect a governor before in Wisconsin who was pretty anti-union, and Scott Walker. So even though he's vague on that issue, I do think him being a moderate in most other issues and cutting taxes would actually help him slightly in the state of Wisconsin. So a narrow Francis Suarez victory here. He's a pretty young candidate, but again, I think he could honestly pull it off just based off how he's really not taking the most unpopular positions on a lot of these issues, unlike other candidates like the Ramaswamy. He's doubling down on some of the most unpopular positions. Francis Suarez is like the direct opposite of him, which would honestly make him a lot more viable. But I don't think he's a terrible candidate. He just needs to be more like, he needs a clearer stance on economic issues. It's pretty vague right now, but I'm assuming that he's taken the most moderate stance, or just the more popular stance in most issues anyway, that he'd probably wouldn't want to upset the status quo too much and probably remain things the same in terms of economic policy. But he would definitely cut taxes a bit. That's one thing he's been pretty adamant about. So anyway, Suarez narrowly wins the Electoral College while Biden wins a popular vote. I'll see you guys in the next video.